A former lottery security consultant just revealed something that could protect your winnings. According to internal reports from jackpot winners who lost everything, there are 8 specific types of people you need to avoid immediately after a big win. Lottery officials know about this, but they never warn winners. Here's who to watch out for. Person number 1. The financial advisor who appears out of nowhere. Margaret was 67 years old when she won $4.2 million in the Florida Mega Millions. Within 48 hours of her name being announced, she received 23 phone calls from people calling themselves financial advisors. According to former lottery officials who've testified in winner hearings, winner information is leaked or sold within hours of the announcement. Sometimes it's an employee at the lottery office. Sometimes it's someone at the press conference. But the information gets out, and these people are waiting. Here's what Margaret didn't know. These weren't fiduciaries, which means they had no legal obligation to act in her best interest. They were commission-based salespeople. The first advisor she met with sold her an annuity with an 8% commission, which cost her $60,000 right off the top. Then came the whole life insurance policies she didn't need. Another advisor convinced her she needed to diversify immediately, before some imaginary tax deadline. According to documentation from winner advocacy groups, Margaret lost $340,000 in her first year just on unnecessary financial products. The psychological manipulation is brutal. They create urgency with phrases like investment window closing or tax deadline approaching. They use authority and complicated language to make you feel like you don't understand your own money. Now, a former lottery official who now consults on winner protection told investigators that lottery offices in certain states have actually been investigated for information leaks, but prosecutions are rare because the money trail is hard to trace. And if you think surprise financial advisors are bad, wait until you hear about person number 2. Person number 2. Long-lost family members. According to jackpot winner support groups that counsel people through the aftermath of sudden wealth. This is one of the most emotionally devastating categories. David won $11 million in the Tennessee Powerball. He was careful about who he told. He called his parents, his sister, and his 2 closest friends. That was it. 3 days later, a cousin he hadn't seen in 15 years showed up at his front door. Then came the uncle who missed every family gathering for the past decade. Then a half-brother he didn't know existed. Winner advocates who track these patterns report that the average jackpot winner is contacted by 6 to 8 previously absent relatives within the first month. The manipulation tactics are predictable: medical emergencies that need immediate funding, business opportunities that just need a small investment, and the most effective one, family obligation guilt. Your family, we're supposed to help each other. David gave out $850,000 to various relatives in the first year. According to his attorney's records, it was all structured as loans. Not a single dollar was ever paid back. Lottery security consultants estimate that 34% of jackpot winners give money to estranged family members, and the cruel irony is that many of these same relatives later sue the winners, claiming they were promised more or that the gifts were actually investments. Person number 3 is even more insidious, and this one has cost winners their entire jackpot. Person number 3. The investment opportunity friend. This is the one that cost a winner everything. James won $8.4 million in the California lottery. He was smart about it initially. He hired an accountant, set up a trust, and told himself he wouldn't make any stupid decisions. Then his childhood friend Marcus called. They'd grown up together, played basketball in the same driveway, been in each other's weddings. Marcus had a business opportunity, and according to former winner advocates who've documented these cases, business opportunity pitches start within the first week after a public win announcement. Marcus showed up with a professional presentation, financial projections printed on glossy paper, and a proposal for a restaurant franchise. And he had spreadsheets showing how similar franchises were making $300,000 a year in profit. He had testimonials from other franchise owners. He had architectural renderings of what their location would look like. According to financial forensic reports that analyzed failed investments by lottery winners, 67% of business pitches made to winners fail within 18 months. But James didn't know that statistic. What he knew was that Marcus was his friend, and Marcus was excited and the projections looked legitimate. James invested $3.2 million. The restaurant opened 11 months later. It lasted 14 months before filing bankruptcy. Marcus disappeared, changed his phone number, moved to a different state, and according to the attorneys James hired to track him down, they successfully hid behind LLC protections that made him essentially judgment-proof. The manipulation works because it combines professional presentation with emotional leverage. These aren't strangers. They're people you have history with, and that history makes you want to believe them. The pattern is documented across dozens of cases. Someone you know, someone you trust, suddenly remembers you exist right after your win becomes public. They pitch investments in restaurants, car washes, tech startups, real estate developments. The business always sounds viable. The projections always look good. And when it fails, the money is gone, the friendship is destroyed, and most verbal agreements turn out to be legally unenforceable. Former lottery officials who now work in winner protection say business scams are the #1 cause of jackpot depletion, above even gambling losses or lifestyle inflation. And speaking of people who manipulate trust, let me pause here for just a moment. Before I tell you about person number 4, and this one's going to shock you, I'd really appreciate it if you'd subscribe to the channel. And let me know in the comments, if you won a jackpot tomorrow, who's the first person you'd tell? Your answer might surprise you after you hear the rest of this list. Person number 4, the significant other who suddenly appears. Now this one is particularly heartbreaking. Sandra won $5.8 million in Arizona. She'd been single for 2 years, wasn't really looking for a relationship, and was focused on figuring out what to do with her winnings. 3 weeks after her win became public, she met Derek at a coffee shop. He was charming, attentive, and seemed genuinely uninterested in her money. They started dating. According to divorce attorneys who specialize in cases involving lottery winners, these strategic relationships follow a documented pattern. The person is attractive, emotionally intelligent, and moves the relationship forward quickly while pretending not to care about the money. Derek and Sandra were engaged within 7 months. They were married at month 10, and the divorce papers were filed at month 14. Arizona is a community property state, which means that assets acquired during the marriage are split 50-50. Sandra lost $2.1 million in the settlement. Winner support organizations that counsel jackpot recipients report that 70% of relationships that begin within 6 months of a public win end in financial loss for the winner. The manipulation is sophisticated because it targets the winner's vulnerability. Sudden wealth is isolating. You can't talk to old friends about your new problems. You don't trust new people because you assume they want your money. So when someone appears who seems to like you for you, the psychological relief is overwhelming. That's when the love bombing starts. Constant attention, rapid escalation of intimacy, but pressure to formalize the relationship quickly. Sandra's attorney later found evidence that Derek had done this twice before with women who'd received smaller injury settlements. The cruel twist is that prenuptial agreements can be challenged in court, especially if the winner can be proven to have been coerced, or if they didn't have independent legal counsel review the document. Some of these people are professionals. They track winner announcements, create opportunities for casual meetings, and execute a practiced script. Person number 5 has actually been arrested multiple times, but they're still out there. Person number 5, the charity representative with urgent causes. Now this one is complicated because these people seem like they're doing good, and that makes it even harder to recognize the manipulation. Robert won $15.2 million in the Ohio Powerball. According to documentation from his attorney, he received 847 letters from charitable organizations in his first month as a public winner. 847. These weren't form letters either. Many were personalized, with photographs of sick children, struggling families, and animals in shelters. Some included handwritten notes from people claiming to be dying and wanting to see their cause funded before they passed. But the letters were just the beginning. A former classmate from high school named Michelle reached out personally. She was running a children's cancer charity and wanted to meet for coffee. She brought a presentation folder filled with pictures of bald kids in hospital beds testimonials from grateful parents, and financial documents showing where donations went. Robert felt the emotional weight immediately. Here was someone he knew, someone doing objectively good work, asking for help he could now afford to give. According to charity investigation firms that audit nonprofit organizations, approximately 40% of charities that aggressively solicit lottery winners are either completely fraudulent or highly inefficient operations, where most money goes to administrative costs rather than actual programs. Robert donated $2.8 million to various charitable causes in his first 6 months. He felt good about it initially, yet he was helping people, making a difference, using his unexpected fortune for good. The dark revelation came during a routine audit. Michelle's children's cancer charity, the one run by his former classmate, spent 73% of donations on administrative costs, which meant mostly paying Michelle herself an executive salary. Only 12% of the money actually reached programs that helped sick children. The rest went to fundraising expenses and overhead. When Robert's attorney investigated further, they discovered that several other charities he'd donated to were similarly structured. One was run by a man who'd been convicted of charity fraud in another state under a different name. Another didn't even have nonprofit status and was operating as a private business collecting donations. But the legal reality is devastating. Charity fraud prosecutions are rare because the threshold for proving criminal intent is high, and by the time the fraud is discovered, the money has been spent and is unrecoverable. The psychological trap works through moral manipulation. If you say no, you feel like a bad person. If you question their legitimacy, they respond with outrage and guilt. How can you question us when children are dying? Don't you care about suffering? The public shaming element makes it even worse. Once you give to one charity publicly, others see you as an available target, and the requests multiply exponentially. Lottery offices have actually testified in congressional hearings that organized charity scam rings monitor winner announcements and deploy representatives specifically trained to emotionally manipulate recent winners. Robert's case isn't unique. Winner advocacy groups report that excessive charitable giving, often to fraudulent or inefficient organizations, is among the top 5 causes of jackpot depletion. Even when the charities are legitimate, they create unsustainable expectations, and the winner becomes trapped in a cycle of giving they can't maintain without depleting their principal. And if you think charity manipulation is bad, person number 6 uses your own government against you. Person number 6, the tax expert offering offshore solutions. This person can literally put you in prison. William won $9.7 million in New York. After taxes, he was left with about $5.8 million. He was talking to a regular accountant about tax planning when someone else reached out, calling himself a tax specialist who worked exclusively with high-net-worth individuals. This specialist had an office in Manhattan, wore expensive suits, and had a presentation about legal strategies that wealthy people use to minimize tax burden. The pitch was seductive. Offshore trusts in the Cayman Islands, shell corporations that exist only on paper, cryptocurrency conversions that obscure the money trail. According to IRS Criminal Investigation Division records, that tax evasion schemes targeting lottery winners have increased 340% in the last decade. The scammers know that winners are suddenly dealing with tax bills they've never experienced before and are psychologically vulnerable to anyone promising to reduce that burden. William's immediate tax obligation was $3.8 million. The specialist convinced him he could reduce that to less than $400,000 through creative structuring. It sounded technical and complicated, which made William feel like this was sophisticated knowledge that only experts possessed. He signed the paperwork, transferred the money as instructed, and paid the reduced amount to the IRS. 18 months later, the IRS audit notice arrived. Then came the criminal investigation. William was charged with tax evasion. Yet the outcome was devastating. He had to pay the original $3.8 million in taxes plus $2.4 million in penalties and interest. Plus, he served 6 months in federal prison. The manipulation exploits greed and fear simultaneously. You're afraid of the massive tax bill, and you're greedy enough to believe there's a legal loophole that lets you keep more. The scammer uses phrases like technically legal and wealthy people do this all the time, and hides the criminality behind complexity. Former IRS agents who now work in financial crime prevention report that lottery winners are flagged for audit at 8 times the normal rate specifically because the IRS knows these schemes target them. The reality that makes this particularly cruel is that lottery winnings are public record in most states, which means hiding the money is nearly impossible, but the initial tax savings feel real enough that winners convince themselves the risk is worth it. The consequences don't appear for years, which is why the scam persists. By the time the IRS catches up, the specialist has moved on to new victims, and the winner is left facing criminal charges. We're getting to the final 2 people, and person number 7 has destroyed more winners than anyone else on this list. Person number 7. The attorney who offers to protect your money. According to legal malpractice insurance data, this is the single most financially devastating person on our list. Former winners' advocates estimate that predatory attorneys have stolen more from jackpot winners than all other scams combined. Linda won $22 million in the Michigan Mega Millions. Within 1 week of her win becoming public, she was contacted by an attorney who specialized in lottery winner asset protection. He had a legitimate office in downtown Detroit, active membership in the Michigan State Bar Association, and even provided references from other winners he'd supposedly helped. The presentation was impressive. Complex trust structures, limited liability company formations, legal shields from lawsuits, and estranged relatives. Now, the initial cost seemed reasonable given the size of her jackpot, a $50,000 retainer for trust setup, and ongoing management. Linda signed the paperwork and, critically, signed a power of attorney document that would allow him to manage her trusts efficiently without requiring her signature on every transaction. According to Michigan State Bar disciplinary records that were later made public during his criminal trial, this attorney had managed trusts for 14 different lottery winners over a 6-year period. The scheme was sophisticated and gradual. He created legitimate-looking trust documents, filed the proper paperwork with the state, and set up bank accounts that appeared completely legal. But buried in the complex trust language, he'd listed himself as beneficiary on certain contingency clauses and had structured the accounts so he could make transfers that looked like routine trust management. Over 3 years, he slowly moved $8.4 million from Linda's trusts into accounts he controlled. The discovery happened almost by accident. Linda's adult daughter, who worked in banking, was helping her mother organize financial statements and noticed irregular transfers that didn't match any expenses or investments Linda remembered approving. They hired a forensic accountant, then brought in law enforcement. The investigation revealed he'd done this to 6 other winners and had stolen over $34 million total. He was eventually arrested, prosecuted, convicted, and sentenced to 18 years in federal prison. But Linda only recovered $2.1 million because he'd spent or successfully hidden the rest in accounts investigators couldn't trace. The reason this scam works so effectively is that attorneys have built-in credibility and authority. They're supposed to be the people who protect you from scams, so when the attorney himself is the predator, victims don't see it coming. The legal complexity creates complete dependency because the victim genuinely believes only the attorney understands the structures he's created. Power of attorney grants actual legal control over accounts, which means the theft happens with documents that appear completely legitimate. The gradual nature of the theft means there's no sudden suspicious withdrawal that triggers immediate alarm. And according to legal ethics investigators who study attorney misconduct, lottery winners are specifically targeted because they lack sophistication with sudden wealth and are desperate for someone who seems to understand the complexity they're facing. The psychological manipulation combines fear-based selling, emphasizing lawsuits and taxes and greedy relatives, with intentional complexity that makes the victim feel stupid and dependent. Many victims are too embarrassed to admit they were robbed by their own lawyer, which means the crime goes unreported longer and the attorney continues operating. Some states now offer free legal consultation services for winners, and lottery officials in certain jurisdictions maintain lists of approved attorneys. But according to consumer protection agencies, there's no real screening process and predators still get through. The warning signs include pressure to sign power of attorney immediately, overly complex structures you don't fully understand. Even after explanation, resistance when you suggest involving other professionals for second opinions. And isolation tactics, where the attorney discourages you from discussing the arrangements with family or other advisors. And now for the final person on this list. This one is so dangerous that winners' advocates say you should avoid them even if you trust them completely. And here's the story we mentioned earlier about a winner who lost everything. Person number 8. Yourself. According to comprehensive studies of lottery winners, financial advisors who work with jackpot recipients, and bankruptcy attorneys who've represented dozens of former millionaires, the most dangerous person to a lottery winner isn't a scammer, a distant relative, or a con artist. It's the winner themselves. And the statistics are absolutely devastating. Thomas won $18.3 million in the North Carolina Powerball. This is the full story we promised you earlier, and according to bankruptcy court filings and his own testimony that became public record, here's exactly what happened. In year 1, Thomas bought a $4.2 million house in Charlotte, spent $800,000 on cars including a Lamborghini and a custom Range Rover, and gave away $1.2 million in gifts to friends who he said had supported him over the years. In year 2, he started investing in businesses he knew nothing about. A sports bar that lost $300,000 before closing, a car wash that never turned a profit and cost him $450,000, and a tech startup run by someone he'd met at a party that burned through $600,000 in 8 months before dissolving. By year 3, his lifestyle inflation had fully taken over. Private jets to Vegas because commercial flights felt beneath him now. Bottle service at clubs running $40,000 a night. A monthly spending rate that financial forensic accountants later calculated at over $40,000 just for routine expenses, not including the business losses or the major purchases. And in year 4, Thomas realized he was running out of money faster than he'd thought possible, and according to his testimony, he made the worst decision of all. He tried to win it back. He spent weekends in Atlantic City and Vegas, convinced that his luck hadn't run out, that he was special, that he could beat the games. He lost $2.8 million gambling in casinos over an 8-month period. By year 5, Thomas filed for bankruptcy. He had $487,000 in debt, 0 assets because everything had been sold or foreclosed, and the IRS was pursuing him for back taxes on money he no longer had. The total timeline? $18.3 million to complete financial destruction in 63 months. In his court testimony, Thomas said something that winner advocates quote constantly. "Nobody stole from me. I destroyed myself. I couldn't handle it." The statistical devastation is almost hard to believe. The National Endowment for Financial Education conducted a comprehensive study showing that 70% of lottery winners go bankrupt within 3 to 7 years. Certified financial planners who specialize in windfall management report that the average lottery winner spends at a rate 340% faster than any rational budget would allow. The specific self-destruction patterns are documented across hundreds of cases. Immediate lifestyle inflation, where winners upgrade to an unsustainable living standard, inability to say no to anyone or anything, a complete lack of financial education about the difference between net worth and sustainable income, overconfidence that makes them believe the money will last forever, and attempts to recapture the emotional high of winning through gambling or risky investments. According to behavioral economists who study sudden wealth, lottery winners experience something called wealth shock, where their identity and understanding of money hasn't caught up to their bank account. The psychological disconnect creates massive anxiety, which leads to either extreme spending or extreme giving, both of which deplete the principal. Former winners in support groups describe it like this: you don't feel like you earned the money, so it doesn't feel real, which makes it incredibly easy to spend without emotional consequences until it's too late. The isolation factor makes it worse because you can't relate to old friends anymore due to the financial gap. But you also can't relate to people who were born wealthy because you don't share their background or education about money management. Then there's decision fatigue. Every single purchase, every request from family, every business opportunity requires a decision, and winners become so exhausted from constant decision-making that they start saying yes to everything just to make it stop. You successfully avoid the financial advisor who appeared out of nowhere. You turn away the long-lost relatives. You say no to your friend's investment opportunity. You don't fall for the romantic partner who showed up right after your win. You ignore the charity representatives and their emotional manipulation. You reject the tax expert with offshore schemes. You even properly vet your attorney and avoid the predatory ones. And then you destroy yourself anyway through your own lack of discipline, financial education, and psychological preparation for what sudden wealth actually does to your decision-making capability. According to professionals who counsel lottery winners, this self-inflicted financial destruction is actually the most common path to losing everything, more common than any external scam. So now you know the 8 people to avoid. But here's what former winners and the financial professionals who've worked with hundreds of jackpot recipients say you should actually do if you ever find yourself holding a winning ticket. The action plan comes directly from financial planners who've worked with the small percentage of winners who actually kept their wealth. And according to their data, the first 90 days are absolutely critical. Winners who stayed wealthy followed a specific protocol. They told no one, they signed the back of their ticket immediately, and they hired an attorney before they ever walked into the lottery office to claim the prize. Some states allow anonymous claims through trust structures, and setting that up first, before your name becomes public record, changes everything that happens afterward. Document every single contact you receive, every request, every offer, every person who suddenly reaches out. The statistical reality is clear. Winners who went public lost money 3 times faster than those who managed to stay private. The professional team you assemble has to be people you find, not people who find you. You need a certified financial planner with fiduciary duty, which means they're legally required to act in your best interest, not someone who earns commissions on products they sell you. You need a tax attorney, not just an accountant, specifically one who specializes in sudden wealth cases. You need an estate planning attorney for trusts and legitimate asset protection. According to wealth management firms that track long-term outcomes, winners who assembled professional teams before claiming their prize retained 78% more wealth after 10 years compared to those who claimed first and hired help later. Here's the critical part. Each professional should not know the others initially, because that prevents collusion and keeps everyone honest through independence. The waiting period is brutal but necessary. Winners who kept their wealth waited an average of 6 to 8 months before making any major purchases. The psychological cooling-off period allows your brain to shift from emotional reaction to rational decision-making. Behavioral finance research shows that emotional financial decisions made in the first 90 days are regretted 91% of the time. The sustainable budget sounds restrictive, but it's the difference between generational wealth and bankruptcy. Financial planners recommend spending only 3 to 4% of your after-tax total annually. That means if you have $10 million after taxes, your annual budget should be $300,000 to $400,000. It seems limiting when you suddenly have millions. But according to long-term winner studies, this approach allows the principal to grow through conservative investment while you live comfortably off the returns. And the wealth lasts not just your lifetime, but your children's and grandchildren's lifetimes too. So let's recap what we've learned from lottery officials, financial professionals, and former winners themselves. The 8 people to avoid are unsolicited financial advisors who are actually commission-based salespeople, long-lost family members who want money instead of relationship, friends with investment opportunities where 67% fail and destroy friendships, new romantic interests where 70% end in financial loss, persistent charity representatives where 40% are fraudulent or inefficient, tax experts offering offshore schemes that lead to IRS criminal charges, attorneys offering to manage your money who represent the largest single source of winner theft, and yourself without a plan, because 70% of winners go bankrupt from their own decisions. According to comprehensive winner studies, if you can avoid these 8 people, especially that last one, and follow the professional team approach, your odds of maintaining wealth increase by over 400%. Now you have the information that lottery officials say they wish they could give every winner. This is the difference between a life-changing win and a devastating loss. If you found this valuable, subscribe to the channel for more financial protection information. And seriously, if you won tomorrow, who would you tell? After everything we've discussed, your answer might have changed. Let me know in the comments. Remember that lottery security consultant we mentioned at the beginning? He's worked with over 200 jackpot winners. He told me that every single winner who went bankrupt ignored at least 6 of these 8 warnings. Don't become a statistic. Protect yourself, even from yourself.